What's up? My name is Seth, and today I'm making a video about how to improve your 5K time. So I've been running for about 8 years now, and I did cross country and track in high school, and also right now currently in college. Um, so I'd like to think I have a little bit of experience and kind of know what I'm talking about. Right, so that's pretty much what I'm here to talk about. I'm just kind of want to share the wisdom that I've gained over the 8 years I've been running, and also kind of share those things that I wish I knew when I first started as well. Things I wish people told me. So we'll get straight into it right now. Alright, so we'll dive straight into the first tip right now for you guys. And so with the school year closing up right now, summer being around the corner, I figured right now would honestly be the best time to make this video. And that's because my first tip is going to be to really take your summer training seriously, right? To really hone in on your summer training, because I cannot emphasize this enough for you guys. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's going to be the most important part of your development going into the fall cross country season, right? And that's because summer training isn't just about maintaining fitness, it's about really building that aerobic and endurance base and really just your strength going into fall cross country, right? So let's break down why that's important. So let's break this down into basic physiology, right? So although I'm not really an expert, this is pretty much my understanding of it as it pertains to running, right? So your body has two main energy systems, right? It's going to be aerobic and anaerobic, right? So with or without oxygen. And essentially your aerobic system is using oxygen as the fuel for your body and the stimulation for your movements. And why is this important, right? So why does it matter? Well, we use one of these two energy systems for our running every time we run. Right, so which one are we using during our races? Well, if you're racing a 5K, it's going to be over 90% aerobic. And even if you're racing something as short as a mile, it's going to be done 85% using the aerobic system. Alright, so you know that our aerobic system is going to be the primary energy source for all of our racing, so it makes sense that we should try to train this, right? And that's not to say that your anaerobic training isn't important, because it still is important, but it's just not going to be our main focus when it comes to something like a 5K or 10K training, right? So let's try to understand this a little bit more, right? So let's say you can run a 30-second 200, right? If you ran that pace for a mile, you would run a 4-minute mile, and that's a pretty good mile, right? 4-minute mile is a pretty good mile. So you have the leg speed and you have the turnover for it, so why can't you run a 4-minute mile if you can run a 30-second 200, right? Why can't you just string 8 of them together? And it's because you don't have the endurance for it, right? So your body isn't capable of using the amount of oxygen required to run a 4-minute mile, right? Your body can't absorb the amount of oxygen needed for that effort, and that kind of translates into your VO2 max. And so your VO2 max is essentially going to be the amount of oxygen that your body can consume during exercise, right? So the more oxygen that you can use and consume and absorb, the more you'll be able to do, the faster you'll be able to run, right? And the more fit that you're going to be. So how do we train the aerobic system and increase this number? How do we increase our VO2 max? Put simply, the answer is going to be capillaries, or capillary development. Right? And so capillaries are going to be like these tiny blood vessels that are all in your lungs and your muscles, and it's essentially how your muscles get oxygen from the air that you breathe. Fortunately, you can build these, right? So you're not stuck with the same amount that you have right now. You can increase the number of these and make your body more efficient, right? You can build them. So how do we build capillaries? How do we increase the number of capillaries that we have? Well, the primary stimulator for that capillary development in your body is going to be that moderate to low intensity aerobic exercise, right? So things that fall under, long runs, easy runs, recovery runs, those kinds of efforts, those efforts are just like your typical runs, those efforts on your non-hard days that you would run, that kind of pace. That's what's really gonna stimulate that development inside your body. And typically, if you're not a highly developed athlete, that pace is not going to be fast, right? It's going to be something pretty slow, maybe slower than you might think. And I wish someone told me that, because I remember when I was, first starting in high school, banging out all these runs, go harder and harder. I was one of those. Unfortunately, I was one of those sprint the warm-up freshmen. That's something you never want to be, but I was one of those, back in the day. But definitely, this is something I cannot emphasize to you enough. Take your easy days easier, right? And even honestly, just take a lot of your mileage days and just run them slightly easier. And that's because, in terms of heart rate, this effort that we're talking about in capillary development, it's going to fall around zone 2 to zone 3. Starting in zone 2, ranging up until zone 3. But the reality is that you can probably take them down to like zone 2 heart rate and experience essentially the same benefits as running in zone 3 with less impact on your body, right? That's not to say that there are not times to be running zone 3 and there's not good benefits of that, but when it comes to that capillary development, you can really get very similar stimulus, just running a little bit easier and just making sure to take your easy days easy and your hard days hard. So the more time that you run at this effort, the more benefit that you're really going to get out of it, exponentially. So it's not just going to be, infinite returns, right? It's going to be exponential, right? Up until around 2.5 hours, right? So at around that 2.5 hour mark is where you're going to start to see diminishing returns, where the benefits start to get really outweighed by just the pure impact of running that long. So there's not really a case where you need to be running over 2.5 hours, and especially not for something like a 5K. A general rule of thumb that I try to go by every day is to get at least 60 minutes of that moderate to low intensity exercise every single day. And as long as I keep doing that on top of everything else that I'm doing, usually I'm just going to be getting more efficient and I'm going to be getting fitter, right? So honestly, mileage is going to be your best friend, and it's going to be your best bet when it comes to getting faster and getting more efficient with absorbing oxygen and utilizing oxygen. And it's just going to make your body that much stronger and that much more efficient, and something that you're really going to want to start doing. The more efficient that you get, the faster you'll get, the faster you'll be able to run, and the better that you'll be overall, right? And so this isn't just something I'm making up either. This is pretty widely known and widely used advice all throughout training, even in high-level athletes. So summer can really give you that chance to work on doing all of those things and really work on building that aerobic strength and endurance for that cross-country season that you're going to need. And it's also a great time to start doing things that you just weren't doing, didn't have time to, or just a lot of those things that you weren't able to do during the school year, right? And it allows you to have a time to start formulating and building new habits that are just going to make you a better runner overall. And summer is really going to be the best time for you to start making those changes and really transforming yourself into that stronger, better athlete for that next season to come. So on that topic, one of the best things that you can really do during the summer is start to up your mileage, start to increase your mileage, right? So if you're a runner who's been running 50 miles a week, summer is going to be a great time to think about bumping it up to 60 miles a week, right? Because, if you're running more miles, summer after summer or season after season, you're going to be getting more efficient, right? So your body's going to be getting more efficient at running, at, moving oxygen throughout your body. Your body's just going to be getting more efficient overall, right? And the thing is, you have to be careful about this, right? Because, a lot of people will get excited about increasing mileage and they can get injured, right? Because increasing your mileage will make you more injury prone. So a pretty good rule of thumb to stick by is just increasing by no more than 10% every single week if you are increasing mileage. So if you're a 40 mile per week runner and you want to start running 50 miles a week, don't just make a 10-mile jump, right? You want to increase, the first week you change from 40 to 44. The next week you can change from 44 to 47. And then the last week you can finally run 50 miles. And that's going to keep you safe and pretty much prevent injury when it comes to increasing mileage. And it's going to be the smarter way to do it. This kind of idea really applies especially if you're starting to kind of run into places you haven't been before. So if you've historically been a 40 mile per week runner and you want to start running 60 miles a week, you probably shouldn't just jump from 40 to 60. And even if you go from 40 to 60 gradually by 10%, you might still be pretty injury prone. So it might be a better idea to, say go from 40 to 50 using the 10% rule, 40, 44, 47, 50. And once you hit 50, you want to hold that for at least 3 weeks before you even consider moving up from 50 to 60. And that's because you need to give your body time to adapt to that new stimulus, time to adapt to that new load that you're putting on your body. And you don't want to be increasing or adding new load faster than your body can adapt, because that's how you're going to get overuse injuries. That's how you're going to get injured just in general. And a lot of things like stress fractures can really come from that, by just kind of increasing too quickly and increasing faster than your body can keep up with you. So you need to make sure you give your body time to adapt to any changes that you make in your training. And also make sure not to, if you're increasing mileage, not to increase intensity at the same time, right? Because that can also make you more injury prone and make it harder for your body to handle that increase. Right, so summer is going to be that time where you can really start to focus on increasing that base and strength in a safe and efficient manner, right? So you want to be running as much mileage as possible, but also as much as you're comfortable with, right? As much as you can run week after week, week over week, while you can feel yourself improving. And you don't really want to go too far ahead of yourself and do anything more than that, right? So the next thing I'm going to touch on is going to be recovery and nutrition. So when you're running more and you're increasing your workload, it's extremely important that you're fueling and recovering properly, right? So when you're running more, you're burning more calories, and your body needs more food to support your body and your goals. And that's especially the case for me, because I know personally, I will tend to not eat enough sometimes, and being underweight is really not good for you. And it can also lead to injuries with underfueling. A lot of other issues kind of come with that kind of thing. But the most important part here is really eating enough to support your body and your training goals as well, right? One of the things that I personally didn't really know when I first started is really trying to get in your protein intake. For most people, that's going to look like around 100 grams of protein every day. For some people more, some people less. But it's going to be around 100 grams. That's like a good rule of thumb to follow. And that's because that protein is really what's going to be helping your muscles recover. It's going to be what helps your muscles create those adaptations after all your workouts, right? Because your muscles need to recover in order for you to get better the next day. So as long as you're getting that protein intake in, you're going to be pretty set when it comes to recovery in terms of your nutrition. But also, you want to make sure to also be getting your carbs in outside of just protein, because carbs are really going to be that main energy source that you're using during your workouts. Outside of those, just having an overall well-balanced diet and making sure that you get in all your nutrients and vitamins as well on a daily basis. You can get these things through your fruits and your vegetables. And if you can't get some of those things, you can also get like a multivitamin. I feel like that's a really good thing to take on a daily basis. That's what I take on a daily basis. And I would suggest taking it on top of your daily diet, just to try to make sure you get all those nutrients and vitamins that you need for your body to support your body on a daily basis. So that's what I have to say about nutrition. So let's move on to recovery. All right, so recovery. So when it comes to recovery, this is honestly going to be one of the most overlooked and underrated parts of training, right? And this is where you're really going to start to see the divide between amateur and elite or pro athletes, because elite athletes really take their recovery seriously and they do it better than most, right? Most people see training and those hard workouts you do as adapting. That's what they see as what makes you faster, what adapts you, creates those adaptations in your body, those workouts that you do every day. But that actually isn't the case. It isn't really the case at all, right? You really gain most of the benefit of your training. You have those adaptations during recovery. So it's in recovery that your body starts making those adaptations stimulated by your training. And it's also what supports your ability to train the next day and perform at your best, right? So the recovery you do mitigates and minimizes the load that you put on your body, and also helps prevent injury as well. And that's something nobody really wants to have, right? So being recovered allows us to be at our best every day, and it allows us to do more workouts. It's what allows us to do more mileage, just more things, more training, more things that trigger more adaptations more often. So the goal is to be able to trigger those adaptations and stimuli as often as we can without getting injured. And so the more you can trigger those adaptations, and the more you do, the more time you do, the fitter you'll get. So elite athletes really have top tier recovery methods and habits, and they spend most of their day doing this, right? Much more than they do training. And some athletes take this so seriously that unfortunately they do resort to things like PEDs and steroids, drugs whose only function is to decrease recovery time, therefore allowing them to do more work that triggers adaptations. So if you think recovery is just kind of something you can shrug off or put aside, or just something you haven't been taking seriously up until now is honestly a really good time to really level up your recovery. Things like nutrition are really going to be a big staple in recovery. But aside from that, things like daily stretching, daily mobility work, daily foam rolling, you can do Epsom salt baths, and just plain old resting, massaging, ice baths, all those kinds of things. They're gonna make you feel stronger and prepared for the next workout that you have. So in terms of routine, things like foam rolling your legs and doing mobility work before and after every single workout in practice, and also before you go to bed, can help really loosen up any sore, tight areas that you have and really get your muscles prepared and ready for that next day of training. And it's also going to be a really great injury preventer, because you don't want to be running on injuries, and in order to race a faster 5K, you have to be able to race, you have to be able to run and train, right? And that also wraps up to our last part of recovery, which is super, super vital for runners and athletes, and that's going to be your sleep, right? Sleep is one of the main things that elite athletes take seriously. So if you're only getting like 4 to 6 hours of sleep every night, your body isn't properly recovering, right? You're not getting ample recovery to support your training, and your body it's really going to be breaking down on itself over time. You might not feel the effects of that after one day, but when it really builds up, day after day, and that kind of compounds, you start to really feel the effects of that, and it can be really difficult, right? And with your muscles not able to repair, you can fall into overtraining. And so if I can emphasize anything, it's to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every single day. I know it's hard, I know it's difficult, it's really difficult, but if you can try to prioritize it, really do your best to do that, because people like Olympians and elite athletes, they're almost always seeing up to 11 hours of sleep every single day, right? And so if you can really focus on sleeping well, sleeping enough, eating right, and really just setting yourself up for success throughout your day to be able to get that sleep and get that food in, it can really set you apart from the masses. It can set you apart from everyone else, because it's really doing those small things right. Doing all the little small things right can really set you apart from everyone, because most people just simply aren't doing those things, right? Most people aren't doing all those little things, and that can really create that divide between you and a lot of other people, and really make the biggest difference on your own performance when it comes to race day. I personally feel like mindset is a really important part of your training. I feel that it has a lot of impact on how you train throughout the season, and it's also one of the, your mind is really what makes up your running, right? And it's what makes you be able to enjoy it. And so one of the best things that you can do is really focus on your training more than your racing. Right, so as is explained in the book Atomic Habits, James Clear, it's one of my favorite books, right? Focus your efforts on your systems, not your goals, right? So if your goal is to run a certain time, say a 60-minute 5K, that's your goal, right? Your goal is to run a 60-minute 5K, that's your goal. But you shouldn't be putting all your focus into that goal. In fact, you probably shouldn't even be putting any of your focus into it at all, right? So that focus should fade into the background, right? That goal should be fading into the background, while you instead focus on your systems, right? Your systems is your methodology you take to achieve said goal, right? In our case, our system would be our training. All of your focus should be on optimizing our system, which is our training, optimizing our training. Your racing is just a product of your training. And so when you get those little wins, you from executing daily, doing every single workout right, doing your nutrition, getting your sleep, getting your recovery, getting your mobility, doing your foam rolling, executing your workouts correctly. When you get all those little wins every single day from executing, they add up. They ultimately add up. And if you focus on just executing daily all those things you need to do, that race performance will come just as a natural byproduct without even thinking about it, without any attention paid toward it, right? So having your focus on systems is really having long-term thinking, not being goal-oriented, right? So it's not about a single race or a time or a workout. It's about that cycle. It's about committing yourself to that cycle of endless, relentless, just continuous improvement. It is your commitment to the process that determines your progress. So if you want better results, forget about setting goals, right? Focus on your systems instead, right? And this is especially important when you hit those days where you're not as motivated, or the days you don't feel like doing the right things. And at those times, when you just want to be lazy or your goal feels overwhelming. So building those process-oriented habits and views or systems will take you there through the days, even when you don't want to do it, right? So as a quote from the book, you not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, right? And that essentially just means that like when you don't want to do something, or if you're just like, you just don't have it anymore, as long as you have those habits under you, those daily routines and habits that you've just gotten into the routine of, then you'll do it anyway, even without the goal right in front of you, without having to look in the mirror and think, I want to run this goal. You just naturally get yourself into the process of doing those habits continuously and endlessly. And those habits therefore create your success. And so the answer to getting faster is pretty simple, but there's not going to be any quick fix, right? I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's a long, time-consuming process that requires a lot of your effort mentally and physically. But if you want to improve and achieve things you thought impossible, your best bet is to really stick to the process explained in this video. And that'll really take you to those places that you really want to go. And it'll get you to that really strong 5K or mile or 10K time that you want in the fall. All right, and that wraps it up. So thank you guys for watching. I really hope these tips helped you guys. It definitely helped me throughout my process of training, throughout all the years that I've been training. So I really hope it can help you guys. If it did, leave a comment, like, subscribe. This is my first video on the platform, so it would really mean a lot to me if you guys just let me know if you guys want any more videos or anything like that. I have a lot more planned, a lot more coming, and hopefully more quality videos. All right, so thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.